Linkin Park's Mike Shinoda continues to tour in support of his recent solo album, Post-Traumatic. And on that tour, each night, the shows are a little bit different, with Shinoda reflecting on his late friend Chester Bennington or telling various stories throughout his monumental rock and roll career. Now, at a recent show in New York City, Mike Shinoda told a story about how the band learned to be grateful for what they have, and also how a certain band taught them a difficult lesson on how to treat other bands that would later open for them. Special thanks to the people over on the Linkin Park subreddit for this, particularly user SamSip, who posted this video showing Mike Shinoda telling this story. In the video, which we're about to show you, Mike Shinoda explained that the band that took them out on their first tour wasn't exactly what you would call humble. He said the band would basically take every single dressing room they could, had a tour bus for each member, and so on and so forth. They even apparently had 2 hairdressers. Shinoda characterizes this band, who shall not be named, as a band that just doesn't sound very nice. Here's the first part of the story where Mike Shinoda sets up his first experience with the band.
Let me tell you, I want to tell you a story really quick, a story that I don't think I really tell about Chester. I promise, it's kind of a weird one, and that's probably why I don't tell it very often, because, well, I mean, you'll kind of know. So when we did our first tour, like our first real tour where like we opened like first out of 3 bands, and we obviously first is we were opening act, and the other 2 bands, well, I'll say this, the headlining act, who shall not be named, they had 2 buses, and they had all this gear, and they had like roadies, and they had a tour manager, and they had 2 hairstylists. And if there were 2 dressing rooms, they'd take 2 dressing rooms. If there were 100 dressing rooms, they'd take 100 dressing rooms. God knows we did not have 100 dressing rooms. But they would leave, I mean, they just take up everything, and they'd leave nothing for the opening acts at all. And they would scream at their crew in the middle of their sets, and they fired this one guy and left him in the parking lot after a show. Just mean stuff. And then during that time, our first single, as we started to make our way over to the West Coast, our first single, One Step Closer, started to get on the radio. And we were pumped, man. We were running around. We were so excited. I remember we drove into Chester's dad's house in Arizona, and the DJ, just as we drove up, the DJ got on and he said, "This is a brand new band, and apparently the singer is a local guy from Tempe, Arizona. This is Linkin Park with One Step Closer." And they played the song, and we were freaking out. I mean, we ran in the house. He's like, "Pops, it's on the radio, turn on the radio." And Chester's not so quiet voice.
As the story continues, Mike Shinoda describes how Chester Bennington, years later when the band was riding their high wave of success, ran into the musician who had taken them out on their very first tour. As Shinoda described it, Chester Bennington was faced with a choice as to whether or not he could have kicked this singer's ass or responded with kindness. And this is a greater story about the amazing character of Chester Bennington.
So fast forward, we ended the tour, and you know, our next tour wasn't much better, surprisingly, and the tour after that got a little bit better and a little bit better, and eventually, you know, we learned to like really take care of our openers, because we were like, man, we were an opener once and that sucked. And like when people, you know, open for us, like we want to make sure that they know they're welcome and we give them space. But anyway, so fast forward to a story here in New York really quick. These guys, we were playing a show, I think it was like Roseland Ballroom. I think we were like headlining that one. Like we had gone from opening it one year to the very next year we were headlining it. And this guy, I think it was Chester, came to the door of the bus, and I was in there, and he's like, "Hey man, do you mind if I do you remember this guy?" And I was like, "No, who is that?" He's like, "It's the And it's one of the guys from that band that we opened for, from like way the very first tour, and he's here. And I was like, oh shit, are we gonna like, what do we say to this guy? And he's like, I don't know, he seems like he's like being pretty cool, so let's just have him come in and we'll just, you know, like we'll be cool. I'm like, yeah, sure. So he comes in and the guy's like, hey man, like, you know, I just want to say congratulations, like on all your success, that's so cool. And we're like, oh, thank you, that's really nice of you to like come in and so on. And and at that moment I was thinking like, this guy's actually like being really cool and this is really nice. And then he says, you know, I think back about all those times and how popular you guys got, and I think it should have been us. I swear to God, he said it should have been us. And Chester and I looked at each other, we were like, yo, this is a moment where you could like beat this guy's ass. Like, wow, what a thing to say. And I looked at him and he just looked at the guy and he's like, yeah, man, like, good luck to you. I hope it works out. Like, you're still playing music. It's all good. Like, just keep going for it. And he's like, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. It means a lot. And we said goodbye to him and let him go. And Chester came back in the door. And I mean, I think the bottom line is, like, that's the kind of guy that Chester could be sometimes. Like, just like, wow, this most super offensive thing. He said such a weird, offensive thing. And Chester was just like, nah, man, that's cool. Make some noise for Chester.
I'm sure a lot of people out there are wondering who this band is and who Mike Shinoda was referring to, though Mike Shinoda doesn't specifically name the band that he's talking about and goes to great lengths not to name the band. There are some fans out there that are noting that the first North American tour Linkin Park went on was in support of a band by the name of the Union Underground, which coincidentally featured Disturbed bassist John Moyer. Of course, there's no way to know for sure which band he's referring to, so take that with a grain of salt. This is, of course, one of many amazing stories we've been hearing about the late Linkin Park frontman, as Linkin Park fans continue to honor his memory. A very good story told by Mike Shinoda. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe with notifications on for breaking hard rock and heavy metal news. That's all for now. Thanks so much for choosing Rockfeed, and we'll see you all very soon.